The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar today. My name is Billy, and I'll be making sure everything runs smoothly in the background here this afternoon, or this morning, perhaps. Just a couple of things before I hand it over to Jonathan, who is going to take you through the presentation. Two very quick housekeeping items. First thing is questions. So we're going to take all the questions at the end of Jonathan's presentation. But if you have a question that comes up at any point during the presentation or demo, just pop it in the questions window in GoToWebinar, and we'll take them all at the end. And if you can't find that, you might need to expand the little control panel on the top right-hand side of your screen in GoToWebinar. The second thing is that this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a copy of today's recording and the slide deck from my colleague Adam tomorrow morning. So keep an eye out for that. But for now, that's all from me, and I will pass it over to Jonathan to take us through the presentation and demo.
Thanks a lot, Billy, and a warm welcome to everybody joining today and everybody watching this on a recorded session later on. So my name is Jonathan, and I am happy to present this agenda for us today. We'll be doing a very quick overview of BrightWork 365 for Microsoft 365, just like a fly-through in general. And then we'll get into the main topic for today, which is to get into the starter templates that are provided for customers. We'll talk about this thing called content templates as well. And then a bit about how you can configure and customize those starter templates for your own needs. And at the very, very end, I'll be handing it back over to Billy for some Q&A. He'll be reading out certain questions and I'll be answering them. So before we dive into a live demo, just a little bit sort of laying the groundwork here. What is BrightWork? BrightWork, as you can see here, we've been around for over 26 years with several different products that we have with proven processes, and we have what we call a start evolve framework, which I think could be summarized as we get you started quickly, but we expect you to evolve over time. But we don't expect you to do that alone. We have our consultants that are kind of part of the package with the product that would work alongside you. I like to call us a relationship company, not just a product company. What we'll be talking about today, of course, is the BrightWork 365 solution, which incorporates, we try to squeeze as much as we can for you out of your Microsoft 365 subscription. And that means integrating with all that you see here, Teams, SharePoint Online, AD, and all these Microsoft Office products, as well as the Power Platform that comes along with Microsoft 365 and the elements that you see here. And I'd like to emphasize that all of this would be happening in your own Microsoft tenant. So all the data, all the goodness that you're going to see would be within your own tenant, not within ours. So you can see here, this is what I was referring to before about our start evolve approach. The quick part would be with the starter templates that we're going to go over a little bit later. And the evolve part would be things that you can do, as you get familiar with our templates and what your requirements are, how you can evolve those. And again, you can evolve them on your own if you wish, or you could choose to evolve them with our own team, sort of in a collaborative nature. And right before we get into the live demo, I'm just going to hand it briefly back over to Billy to do a quick poll, if you don't mind, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, sure, Jonathan, thanks. So we have one quick poll here that we're going to fire off, and the question is, are you currently using Microsoft 365 to manage your projects? So let me just click launch there. So just three answers, kind of yes, you are, no, but you may be considering it, and no, you've never considered it. So I can see that the answers are kind of coming in here at the moment, kind of a pretty even split. Oh, actually, so the majority of people, 45%, 54% say no, but they are considering it. And then a few people are, and a few have never considered it. So we'll let that go for another couple of seconds. But if you are considering Microsoft 365 to manage your projects, you're definitely in the right place. And I think Jonathan's presentation will be very helpful for you today. So I'm just going to close that now, and thank you very much for your responses.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Billy, and to all those who participated. So let's get on to the demo. I'm just going to bring up a live page here. I'm going to get into the product in just a second. I just want to point out that I'll be referring to our knowledge base for part of the presentation, and that's open to all customers, non-customers. That's at help365.brightwork.com. The other thing I'll just point out briefly is we also have a webinars page. You'll get a link to this specific webinar, but you can see we also have all of the prior webinars recorded as well. So with that, let's go back here. So first I want to start off with with what I hope is a quick, sometimes I might go a little over long on this, but I'd like this to be a quick overview demo of what the product is. So we start off here on the home page with some automatically collected metrics about what's going on in your system. This is my system, but we've got, for example, a lot of information about requests that have been submitted. And that's how the product, the normal operation of the product, or the normal flow would be that people would make a request for a project first. And we have a whole series of templates and processes that are built in for that whole request management piece. Then, of course, many or maybe most of those requests would turn into projects. So you got a sense of what's going on in your system for the live projects. And then we got portfolios. So we'll kind of talk about that in a bit. But you can think of the hierarchy as being at the topmost level are portfolios. One level beneath that would be the programs that fall underneath those portfolios. And then you have the projects that fall under the programs. So let's just kind of look at the request for a moment. Like I said, it all begins with a request. Somebody would click on new, a request form would open up. They'd fill out some preliminary information. Why do you want this project? Some basic information. And then stakeholders would get an alert about these requests, and they'd be able to pretty much vote whether the request would continue on to become a project. And we could take a look at some open requests here. So you can see all the fields that are built in. Again, we're at the request level. And this could all be configured and customized as to what the request forms would look like. Once it gets approved, it becomes a project. You can see we have a whole bunch of projects in the system here. This is so your system would be blank, of course, in the beginning, but we have a whole bunch of projects. And what we're going to dive into the actual meat of the projects in just a bit. As the projects get issues and risks, we have a way for you to manage those as well and to have everything float up into these high-level catch-all reports. Same thing for risks. And then, like I said, projects would be children of a program. So in this case, we have you could have one program, you can have as many programs as you wish. And you'll be able to see them by clicking into programs. If I click further, you can see that this particular program has some child projects that belong to it. And in turn, each of those programs would ultimately rise up into a sort of grandparent level of portfolios. And again, you can have one portfolio, you can have many portfolios. It's really completely up to your organization how you want to sort of file these things or think of the hierarchy of these things. In addition, we have reporting, of course. So we have a series of built-in charts and graphs for all that's going on. These are requests. We have similar things for the projects going on, issues, risks. We also include Power BI reports. So let's see. So if I click in here, you'll see I mean, this is just one series of Power BI reports called Portfolio and Projects. And we have all these different tabs at the bottom. So the way it works is we provide you with all these reports. You have the option whether or not you purchase from Microsoft Power BI licensing. If you do, you get to use these reports. If you don't, the reports are still there. They're just not going to function until you would do those optional licenses from Microsoft for Power BI. But totally separate from that are these other dashboard reports, which have nothing to do with Power BI licensing. These you would be able to use without those Power BI licenses. These that you see here and all these other list reports, again, are separate from those Power BI reports. Okay, let's get into the starter, the project management starter templates that are included with BrightWork. So for that, I'm going to go into our knowledge base just to get a quick way to look at these. I'm going to click on projects here, and then BrightWork 365 starter project templates. So the first thing we'll look at, you'll be getting this in the PowerPoint PDF that's going to be sent to you, so you have more time to digest it. But what I'd like us to focus on right now is just the purple section here. So we include a Project Light template and all these other templates that you see here. The Light template, of course, would provide you with a light method of project management. We have these two here, Project Standard and Update, which would be sort of a step up from that in terms of complexity. And then finally, we have these other two templates called Structured and New Product Introduction, which would be sort of at the furthest part of maturity level for project management. So what I mean by that, let me just close this, if I go a little bit further down, is there's like sort of a gradual increase in complexity, depending on where you're at, either as a whole with project management or the needs of a particular project. So for example, here's a screenshot of our Light template, which we'll be digging into an actual template a little bit later. But there are two main pieces that are going to be sort of altered as you move your way up to the different templates that we include. The first would be what we call a business process flow across the top. So these would be the stages that are included as part of that template type. So for Light, we have initiate, plan, execute, and close out. And you can have, and to get from one stage to the next, it could either be very simple where just the project manager clicks a button and gets it moved, or it could be more complex, even in the Light template if you wish, where there has to be some sort of approvals by stakeholders before the project can move between the different stages. The other element, major element that would get changed between all of these template types would be the tabs that you see below. So here you can see we have a charter tab, status, team, etc. As we move our way up through the templates, I'm just going to skip ahead to structured, for example. You can see there are many more tabs here, right? So whereas in a lighter template, you would not see a risk tab and all the risk management that goes along with it, or the cost tab for cost management. In the lighter ones, in the structured one, you do have that additional capability. And the business process flow could be different between them as well. Let's just go to product update, for example. Actually, new product introduction. Yeah, so a new product introduction, you can see the business process flow has changed. Let me just click into that. It's relevant to that particular use case of introducing a new product. There's a business case, then there's a development cycle or stage, scale up, launch, and standard. So all of this is going to be baked in to those starter templates. And again, they could be altered through customization that you could optionally go through with our team. Let's go back here. Let's look at a live project here. So I'm going to go into this one here would be an example, live example of a project structure template, which we looked at a moment ago. So you can see here, it has the business process flow that I referred to, and has a whole bunch of tabs here as well. Now, and then if I went into the other templates, you'd see a different series of tabs and business process flow as well. Now let's go on to the next topic, which is content templates. Now, with the out-of-the-box templates, you would create a project, and it would be empty, right? The Gantt would not be filled with a bunch of tasks in the beginning. The risks, the issues would be empty as well. But over time, of course, you're going to fill up a project with tasks, with issues, with risks, and stages, for example. And you may say that this is such a great example of a project, I want to capture this to be used for future projects. So to do that, we can create what's called a content template for this. Very simple to do. We make sure that the content that's in this real project is just the way we like it. And this is all optional. We can choose to copy this to a new content template. After we do that, all that data gets saved in this separate entity called a content template. Let's look at what a content template that was saved already would look like. So I'm going to click on projects here, and I'm going to go down to content templates. And we can see an example of all of those content templates that were saved over here. So if I were to click into one, let's just click into this guy here. So this content template, you're not actually going to use this to manage the project. It's just showing you that this was saved from a project where we really like the way things were set up. So if I click into Gantt, for example, you can see it has a whole bunch of tasks. It will have a whole bunch of risks. Well, okay, it could have a whole bunch of risks attached to it. It has an issue that's part of it as well, and it has what we call stages, which would just be parent levels of a Gantt chart. So it would be, in this case, initiate, plan, execute. Those would be saved as stages. So this is a content template. Your typical end user would not come in here to see what's within the content template, but a project manager would come in here to see what's part of it, because they have the option to connect this content template with a regular project template, so that when they go to create brand new projects, it would pull over all of this content. So how that's done is we can go into our templates area here at the bottom. Again, what I'm showing would not be a typical end user piece. This would be something for a project manager or somebody with higher permissions to actually do. It would go into a project template. So here we have all the project templates that could be used when a project is created. And what they can optionally do is go into one of those project templates here. Again, we're kind of behind the scenes here. And they can choose to link up the project template with one of those content templates. So you can see that down here that it's been done. So in this case, when somebody goes to create a brand new project from this template here, it will automatically bring in all that good content that was associated with this template over here. And the end result would be when you go to create that brand new project, it's not empty, right? It's going to have all of those elements. Let's just click in here. In this case, when somebody goes to create a new project from that template, it'll bring all of these elements along with it. It'll bring all this Gantt information, any issues that might have been sort of baked into that content template as well, and any other. It actually will bring in project settings that you've pre-configured as well. Let's move on now to the next topic, which would be configuring and customizing the templates for your needs. So we went over an overview of the product. We went over content templates. Now we're going to get a bit into more configuration about what we can do. So here we have, again, we're behind the scenes. This is a project template that will be used to create new projects. We already went over how you can associate it with a content template. But there's a lot of other things that we can configure about this template as well. We can set up, we can sort of pre-populate who is going to be an approvals coordinator for this project. That means that when it comes time to go from one stage of a project to the next stage, this will be the coordinator of that whole process. In this case, Anne will be notified whenever requests for approvals have gone out to go from one stage to the next. We also have other configuration that relates to that whole approval process. Should we require an approval when we want to go from the initiate stand to the plan stage, from plan to execute, etc. You can choose to have no approvals required, so that would be very easy for the project manager to just go from one stage to the next when they're using a project that was built from this particular template. Or we can make it more complex and say, yes, we want approvals to be required. Who should be the people who do the approvals, and some other aspects of that approval process. We can also decide what should the form look like when they're using that template. So in this case, it's using this particular form. So that's going to influence what tabs are going to be present in that project, issues, risks, charter, etc. We kind of give you those forms to begin with. But if you choose, you can actually go into a customization effort to further customize those forms. So let's say you want a derivative of those tabs that are going to be exposed. Well, that is possible. And then once you go through that effort, you can link those particular forms with the template. So every project that's created would have your organization's idea of what the form should look like. And if you remember, we talked about the business process flow that was sort of going the stages that would show across the top of a project. Well, again, we give you those out of the box, but you can choose, again, to go through some customization effort and have your own derivative business process flow. And if you did that, you can then just come into the template and easily, just by Xing this out, you can choose your custom business flow or your custom stages that should show whenever anybody goes and chooses this particular template. Now let's get on to another aspect of being able to configure this template. And that would be using what we call a form configurator. The form configurator, so without getting into any customization effort, through simple configuration, which we're going to show here now, you can change the look and feel of projects that would be created from this template. And it's real simple. So for example, if I expand the charter tab, the charter tab is made up of a top section and a bottom section. Let me actually look at that. Let's go and look at what that looks like. So if I go back into a project that's out there, and we look at the charter tab, there's a top section and a bottom section here. So let's say we don't want economic impact to be showing for any projects that were built from the template. Well, it's pretty easy. We can just go back to where we were a moment ago. Go down to the form configurator, charter, bottom, and we can just uncheck economic impact as a field that should not be showing. Now, before I click save, we might want to check, okay, now, of course, this is going to affect any new projects that are created from this template, but we also want to see what existing projects are going to be affected by this change. right? There might be many projects out there or not. So let's click on projects here. And in my case, it's really not a major impact. It's just going to impact this one project here that exists already. But if it were to impact many, many projects, we'd probably want to have a change management process in place, kind of let all those project managers know, hey, we've decided after the fact that we don't want economic impact to show anymore. So you go through that process, you communicate, you socialize, and then you go ahead and make that change and click save. So now we can go back to the existing project. Let's refresh this existing project here. And you can see that economic impact has in fact disappeared. So it's as simple as that. You don't have to go into each project and do anything. It just, with this, the next time people go into that project, it's gone. And that could be done in so many different places within the project. So if I go back to our form configurator, let me just get that back. That could be done for charter. It could be done for the status tab. All of these tabs, the Gantt, the issues tab. You can specify what is going to show up any of those tabs as well. Let me just go back here, click refresh. And you can say economic impact is back. So lots of power there without having to get into any major customization efforts. That's pretty much it. What I'll finish up with is just to say that I'm showing you sort of things that you can do on your own, very simple configuration changes that you can make to the project. But again, either on your own or in conjunction with a developer team that's meant to work directly with customers, you can get fancier. As I was saying, you can change. You can create a brand new derivative template from our starter templates where, maybe the business process flow is going to be a little bit different than what you see across the top. You might decide that in addition to just simply making certain fields disappear from the different tabs, you may want to create a whole additional grid. So you have one here in the top, one here in the second one here. You may choose to have a third one that has a whole series of custom fields in it that become part of your requirements. And that could be accomplished. Again, you could do it on your own, or if you don't have that in-house resource to do that kind of further customization, again, you're very welcome to do it with our staff. And the way that it works is we have a whole process in place in terms of gathering those requirements, deciding what's going to be a simple configuration versus something that's more entailed for a customization. You would be working with a teammate at BrightWork that's our customer success partner, or one of our customer success partners, where you'd be having some discussions. You'd be capturing those kind of requirements in a spreadsheet and other documentation. It would be completely understood, and then you would work with a customization expert at BrightWork to implement those kind of further sophisticated type of changes. With that, I'm just going to go back to our presentation here. Just to kind of finish up before we get to the Q&A, just some explanatory slides. Again, you're going to get a copy of this, but just to further explain one of the earlier topics we went into, which was the content templates. So you can see here, the project template, the starter project template that we have can be combined or associated with a content template that we saw, which would actually have the data in it, right? The Gantt tasks, risks, issues, project settings. Those get combined together to create that brand new project. So project template plus content template equals a brand new template that you would use to actually manage your projects. Those get saved. People with the proper permissions can go into the system very easily and see all of the content templates that have been created. Again, not to actually manage the projects, but just to see what kind of content templates are available to associate with a real template later on. We saw how you can actually go into a project template behind the scenes. And again, that would be somebody with the appropriate permissions, not just your standard user, to do things like change who's the approvals coordinator if you wish, associate that template maybe with a different form template or a different business process flow. You can get into that form configurator. On the next slide, you can get into the form configurator and very easily make certain fields appear and disappear. Again, that would only be affecting, in this case, the product update template. But it would affect existing projects as well as brand new projects. If you don't want it to affect any existing projects, you can very easily make a copy of this product update template and just go ahead and make these configuration changes in that copy so that it would only affect brand new projects. And that's it. So back over to Billy to call out any questions that he might see.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jonathan. We'll hop into questions now, folks. So if you have any questions, do fire them into the questions window. So just to get started, Jonathan, question about, I think we covered this at the start, but a question about kind of where the data is stored. Is it in a user's own Microsoft 365 tenant?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So yes, the data is going to be stored in the Microsoft tenant of the customers, not within BrightWork's own systems.
Great, thanks. So we talked about modifying the project templates, but how about things for kind of like request management process and kind of other forms? Can you modify those as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to share my screen again. I'm going to go into, again, behind the scenes, the templates area. So we've been focusing just on how you can sort of manipulate or embellish the starter templates. But if I click here on request templates, it's not exactly the same. So if I click into a particular one, at the moment, we don't have a form configurator for request templates. Potentially, that might be something on a backlog, not sure. But in the request, there are still other changes that you can make about a template that are just point and click, very easy. Again, you can change who's going to be the approvals coordinator for the request process. That's different from the project stage process. You can, instead of the business process flow that was out of the box, you can just choose a different business process flow, which would be the stages across the top for requests. You can change which project template is associated with a request template so that when the request template finally does get approved, at the moment, this would mean that the project standard template is what that eventual project is going to be created from. But you can alter that as well. And as well as many other changes. So that's a long yes to your question.
Thanks. And another one kind of about requests. Can you just show us how we manage new project requests in the app briefly?
Sure. So what I'll mention just to start is that that happens to be a webinar of its own, where it's given a good amount of time that it deserves. But briefly, and you can find that again on somewhere within the webinars page over here. But briefly, if I go into the request here, I'm not going to click on new because it might take too long to kind of go through the beginnings of it. But if I just click on an existing one here, so basically, if I were to click new, it would just open up with a couple of fields. It would want to know the title of the request and which particular project template I would like the request to be associated with. But once it gets a little bit further down the process of the request, more information could potentially be gathered about the request. The approvals coordinator, as well as in this case Christine Chang, would be notified that this request is in process and they would like to have their approval to move it from the draft stage in this case to the accepted stage. And then again, after that's all done, by the way, emails would go out with buttons in it that says, approve or deny or send back to the requester. So we make it very easy. In addition to emails, if you choose to manage this whole request process through Microsoft Teams, that's built in as well. And then once it gets to accepted, in order to get to the final stage, in this case for the request, to the approved stage, again, in this case, it would go back to Christine Chang, who would have to say that yes, this can now go to the approved stage. In the real world, you would probably have a different approver or set of approvers between the different stages. In this case, it's showing the same person, probably just to make it easy for demo purposes. But in the real world, you could have multiple different approvers to get to the different stages. Once it gets to the approved stage, your typical approval would automatically kick off the creation of the project. You can change that, you can alter that so that it doesn't automatically create the project, but probably the majority of your requests you would want to have configured to automatically create the projects. And then you just kind of move forward from there.
Great.
That's it, Billy.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. So I've got one last question here, folks. So if you have any final questions, do get them in now. This question, Jonathan, is about the Microsoft licenses required to use BrightWork 365.
Sure. So for that, I'm pretty sure it's on this page here. Yeah. So I think you'll get a link at some point after this webinar, which, Billy, if you could just make a note, maybe that it should somehow include access to this particular page here.
Yes.
You would see here that it's somewhere in here, what licenses are needed to use. So yeah, what Microsoft licenses are needed to use BrightWork 365. So we go to an explanation here. You would need a particular Power Apps license to do it. Optionally, like I mentioned before, you might get the Power BI licenses from Microsoft. So that's all going to be handled just between you and Microsoft. The BrightWork license piece is something that, of course, you would be discussing with our team here. Yeah, but we try to detail it as best we can through our public website here.
Yeah, that's it. All right, great. Thanks, Jonathan. So that's the last of the questions. So we will, I think, draw a line in the sand there and end a little bit early. So we would like to thank everybody for joining today and sticking with us through the questions as well. We appreciate that. So just in terms of next steps, like I said at the beginning, this webinar has been recorded or is being recorded. And my colleague, you will get a note from my colleague Adam tomorrow with a link to the recording of this session, a slide deck that explains in detail what Jonathan covered as well. And if you would, there's his contact details on the screen there. They'll also be in the deck. And I'm just going to put a link into the chat at this point in time if you would like to schedule a follow-up with Adam yourselves for a personalized demo or to look at any aspects of BrightWork 365 in more detail. You can just click that link and book with Adam directly. So I've sent that now, but that's it from us. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on hopefully the next webinar. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Billy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.